ogni porta neve svina, Orontiros eio parinzio incede. Oh, 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 Not everybody. I was getting into an argument in Sean's stream chat last night about parents of school shooters being liable for the actions of their children. Now, I actually joined the stream a little late, so I didn't catch Sean's particular opinion about that on the Potentially Criminal podcast, stream show, whatever. I guess the outro says it's the Potentially Criminal show. And by the way, that outro is probably the single best AI music I've heard out of all of the AI music to come out. So, it can be good if you tweak it enough. Or you just get lucky. Get super, super lucky in how the algorithm puts it together. Use the proper tool that isn't sloppy. People are thinking that it's going to be like computers, but I don't know, man. I really feel like there's a pretty hard limit on code talking to other code. And then making its own decisions off of that. I feel like it becomes too abstracted from, as I've described before, the natural intuition, the instincts of manimal, and the cold calculations we have found out are actually more inaccurate than that intuition when it comes to realizing the real world. But anyways, back to that, I was arguing with other people, and they said, "Oh, I shouldn't be liable if my child goes and he runs somebody over." It's like, yeah, you are. I put forth the dog argument, right? And it really is true that when you raise a child, you're essentially raising an incredibly intelligent dog up to a certain point, and then you're raising an incredibly emotional human being. When kids are young, they have the same sort of mindsets and ways of training them that dogs do. So it's and they're also legally your property when they're your children, just like a dog is legally your property. There's the whole argument of, well, kids should be allowed to choose this, that, and the third. They're not, and they never have been, because if they did, they die. It's that simple, It's not some Rousseauian conundrum. It is as simple as children are their part of their parents, like direct parts of their parents. So if a child goes and shoots up a school, their parent should serve like 20, 30 years in prison. And I mentioned how, they could go through the emancipation process if their kid's a little hellion, they raised a little monster, and they want to release a gangbanger on the streets at age 16. There are emancipation processes that they could go through. It's not my problem. It's not something I would ever consider, because once you've done that, it's already your fault. You should not try to run away from your responsibility. And there's no such thing as like an inherently bad egg. It's a big thing modern psychology has. You are the way that you are because you were born that way. That's a big problem with modern psychology. It denies free will. So it goes back to this old Calvinist, Cohenist split between people who believed in free will, like the Druids and the Catholics, and the people who don't believe in free will, like the Pharisees, and who believed that they were just doing what they had to do, and the Calvinist Protestants, who believe that God makes people pure or impure depending on his will, etc., etc. And then we have our free choice that Atom exercised has nothing to do with it. It is endorsed. It's incubated under the roof, and it's insane that people think that they're entitled to let their kids do whatever they want. And we shouldn't live in a society where people are entitled to think their kids can do whatever they want, because that allows kids to get worse and worse and worse and worse over the generations until you have nothing but a chaos moat as your society. Surrounding, of course, the glittering, golden, shining city on the hill that Jean Calvin talked about in his rhetoric. If you raised a sadistic murderer, access to weapons that they can't legally buy, you are 100% responsible. Watch parents straighten their spines if you enforce that harshly. Up the responsibility ante, okay? If you hold a criminal in your home, you're an accomplice. Similar logic applies here. It doesn't matter if you're a pasty suburbanite, it doesn't matter if there's Tren de Aragua. If the result is the same, then the result is the same. People have certain rights, but those rights don't get to override common sense. And for so long, people like legitimately send kids out to do their dirty work because they think that the kids will get punished less severely. If somebody gets caught doing that, they're 100%. If they get caught in the process of doing that, they already are on the hook. So why shouldn't parents? The ultimate responsibility in the kid's life until they turn into an adult. You're not going to have and raise noble children as sickly, selfish slaves. I'm pro-life in many ways. I'm pro-natalist in many ways, but not in a way that creates tormented automatons. We don't need 1 billion tormented automatons living in hive cities as America. That's the ultimate goal for some of the people that espouse that rhetoric. Does that mean that the insane baby-killing abortionists are correct? Absolutely not. Those people are completely insane. It'd probably be hard-pressed to find any one of them that isn't on, like, mind-breaking pharmaceuticals. But at the same time, you know, the way that you do things depends on whether it's proper or whether it's improper. So, moving on. The Obama years were so weird. A bunch of queers saying, they let blacks in the Illuminati, it's cool now. Here's a question. Why are Elon's businesses falling apart, but Trump's aren't? Castles in the sand, it's that simple. Now, we still hold out hope that Elon fixes his, ways of doing business, but it's pretty obvious, like, observing him over the last decade or so, that the $2 billion he started off with back in 2012 is his actual wealth. He's a billionaire from inheriting emerald mines that worked African children to death. But he's not a trillionaire like he wants to pretend to be. And he probably never will be. And that's good, because why would that matter? Why would that help him if it's not actually doing anything, if it's just fiat, if the $1 trillion comes from inflating the money so much? Everyone's sick of raw meat role players and Daily Wire douchebags, but a terminally online movement based around Masonic ideals, championed by a man with 12 birth defects, and on ketamine. That ain't it, Chief. People did not vote for the dark enlightenment, dark MAGA. They didn't vote for that. That's not what Trump was espousing in his rhetoric. That's not anything that was presented to the public. And I've seen Mencius Moldbug, Curtis Yarvin, dark enlightenment people. I have seen how they operate. They are parasitic, and that is exactly why I trace it back to Masonic ideals, the same sort of ideals that infiltrated and destroyed Christendom through the Enlightenment. And the Dark Enlightenment is even more destructive, trying to form a Kali Yuga out of something that is already a mess and needs fixing. Like, you can't respect that. It goes back to the destruction of everything that people's ancestors have worked generation after generation to create and provide. And if you do respect that, you're a monster. And you probably just hate people. Right? That's why it attracts so many antisocial people. You don't want to go to war with China? You must hate Lake and Riley. I'm just kidding. It's not that dire. Yet. There are so many people Different people shot through modern society that steal from concepts greater than them and repackage them poorly. It's the nature of Freemasonry. And the more you study Freemasonry and how it actually manifests, instead of getting a first person opinion from a Freemason about how they think their organization manifests, the more you recognize that that is the case. They never take responsibility. And whenever you're losing in something, that's always somebody else's fault in that case. But here's what you should do. Whenever you're losing in something, don't panic. Look for opportunities and pray your enemy is overconfident. It's one big thing that could actually save humanity, is the overconfidence of evil people, is the decadence of the Ottoman sultans, in a way. Failure is actually fascinating. If you're a lowest common denominator lightning rod, you get to study the biggest obstacles that people run up into in society. And that's actually a great gift. It's a great gift to the world to be able to study that. People don't want to see people that are successful all the time and feel inferior and have imposter syndrome or whatever the heck that is. People need to see the worst. People need to learn from the wise and the foolish. Both. Let's see what sort of notes I wrote down. It'll be a short episode, but short episodes tend to do really good, and I understand why. Because people don't want to watch 35 minutes of rambling. People have busy days, right? So if I can contract my writing and my thoughts, it's much better for everybody. So the Cohen method: condemnation without understanding, ownership without responsibility, hatred without due justice or diligence, esotericism without depth, and numbness to a vibrant world. That's the Cohen method. Here's a good one. The alchemist quite literally tried to rewrite basic things everyone always knew. Like, what if Mercury was pregnant? What? You can see where Freud gained purchase for his incest philosophy, which could be a justification for the Yiddish incest and definitely laid the ground for Marx. That's true. So I don't got a lot of notes today. I'm very worried about how things are going in certain sectors of the world at the moment. Trying to hold it together. Pray for the weak. Keep your head on the swivel. And try to just survive, man. Try to survive in a way that doesn't destroy your soul. Don't try to thrive in times like this. Because you'll stick out and you'll get harvested like the beautiful, vibrant tree. Try to be more like the tree that's gnarled and survive for the sake of your ancestors, for the sake of your progeny. Alright, y'all. That's it for today. Cheers.